Hello guys and welcome back. So now I want to show you guys how to generate shapes like this quickly from a still image. So I have the reference that looks like this, and I loaded it using the trace node, and I'm going to carve it and delete some shapes. Just use the part that I'm interested in. So I'm going to carve that, and I'm only interested in basically this part. So I'm gonna use a facet node to reduce the number of points, and then let's select these guys and delete them. This too. Okay, and I'm going to use this part, but I don't want to use it as a whole. I'm gonna split it into segments, and then those will be my small library of shapes that I'm going to use. So to do this, I'm going to resample this to a very high count, and I'll explain why in a second. And the idea is I want to select group every 100 points and then divide this whole piece into separate segments. So I'm going to use a group by range, and then let's say every 100 points. Okay, and maybe let's offset it a bit. Let's increase this, something like this. Okay, so we have full shapes that means something. Set this to cool, and then I'm going to use a poly cut and split the geometry at those points. So I'm going to copy the group name, paste it here, and instead of removing, I'm going to say cut the geometry, and now it converted them into actual primitives. If we go and select them, we have individual primitives. So the next part is to move these guys at the origin and have a point, the first point be the center, at the center of the origin. So I'm going to use a for each loop for each connected primitives, and now because they are individual, we can operate on them. Okay, let's take a look here. So I don't care too much about the sorting, the point count. I'm just going to resample them to 40 points, all of them. Okay, and then I'm going to sort them by height, so that 0.0 is always the lowest. I'm going to use a sort node, change it to by y-axis, and that's going to change it here. And then I want to transform this to the origin, and the transform that I need is the difference between how far 0.0 is from the origin. So I'm going to create a point VOP. We've done this already, so I'm going to create a point VOP, import the coordinate of 0.0. So first input, create a constant, it's an integer, so 0.0, and I'm gonna subtract all the points from this value, and that's gonna shift them, basically negate that offset, and now it's at the origin. Cool, let's run this through all the shapes, and there we go. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, previously we had them in a switch. This is not the case, not going to work anymore. So we can simply rely on the primitive number, which goes from 0 to 8 to 7. Sorry. Okay, so 7 is the last one, and then 0 is the first one. So let's start with this shape, or maybe this, and I'm gonna resample them again because I run into an issue. So where is the resample here? And I'll explain why in a second. I was getting some weird ordering number for some of the curves, and doing a resample again just fixed the issue. So this is the previous for each loop. I'm gonna reuse that, and this is my first input that I'm gonna use, and then the second input, we're going to drive this guy with an expression. Now that expression we left at the switch node. It's this guy. Okay, so let's plug that in there, and instead of 0 to 8 I'm going to go from 0 to 7, 6 apparently, it's fine, 7, and we need, for this to evaluate correctly, we need to add a backtick, and if we middle click now, you see it's evaluating. Now I realized that, and this could be the reason why the for each this guy was not switching properly. See how it's giving us back a random float, not an integer, and this value needs to be a float. So there is a math function that called a floor and a sail, S-E-I-L, and these two functions will take any float number and try to either crush it down to the lowest integer or bring it up to the highest integer. And the floor takes the value to the lowest integer, the nearest integer, and the sail rise it up. So I want to use the rise function, which is the sail, and you can Google this to understand how it works better. And that's gonna randomize, generate the integer that we need. And let's connect this here, connect that there, and I changed this point so that previously it was 16, I changed it to 40, and that should do it. Okay, let's see what's happening now. So this is good. Let's see. Yeah, sometimes the cache doesn't reset, and it's working. So let's play with some values. Something like that. Something like this. Can obviously change anything we want. And now we have a random silhouette that we can use. We can lower the increment. We can lower the increment. So why is it? Not sure why is it displaying that geometry there. But we can delete it by hand. I'm not gonna worry too much. Cool, so this is 1 cycle, and then as we start to increase, it grabs more and more shapes, and it randomizes them. And you can have as many shapes as you want here. So I can take a copy of this. I don't know if this is going to work. I'm going to select some points to soft transform. And now we have something completely different. Yeah, I wouldn't go with the concave shapes. And let's just merge all this together. So this, and then this is this. And now how much primitives we have? 16. So let's change this to 15. And this still works. Oh. And there we go. We have different shapes added. Just have to be careful with the angle, because once that happens, then it's going to be tricky. And we can do the same thing, obviously. There we go. We have a very complex shape, and I'm going to show one more thing. So I'm going to add 100 divisions along the height. That's too much, so let's set this to Okay, and I'm gonna bend this guy. So with the bend, let's transform this to the origin. Transform to the origin, zero out the height. It's only X and Z. Okay, and then for the bend, I'm going to use the capture direction is going to be Y. The capture height, we're going to increase that until we capture everything. So that little circle there goes all the way up. And then let's play with this value. What's happening? Okay, the up vector needs to change. Set this to 90. Set this to 1. Okay, and let me turn off the color display. And let's mirror this guy. And let's move it. And now we have something really, really complex. And it's all procedural, of course. Cool. Well, hope you guys liked this, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.